homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Now let us study the Bodhicharyavatara, Ocean of Good Explanations, composed by Tokmei Zangpo, within the sections on the preliminaries, main practice, and concluding practices of taking up bodhicitta. We are currently focusing on the preliminaries of taking up bodhicitta. Within the preliminaries, we have already covered the practices of refuge and offering in the 7-branch practice. Now we are moving on to the practice of confession. The practice of confession will be studied through the explanation of the 4 powers. The first of 4 powers is the power of support. And the first point of the power of support is called taking refuge in the common 3 jewels. Yesterday, in the previous verses, we already studied taking refuge in the Buddha. That is, the verses on taking refuge in the Buddha have already been explained. Today, we will continue with taking refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha. Likewise, I truly go for refuge to the Dharma they have realized, which dispels the terrors of samsara, and to the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. The meaning here is that not only do we take refuge in the Buddha, as previously explained, but we also take refuge in the Dharma, which dispels all fears within samsara, such as the suffering of heat and cold in the hell realms, the suffering of hunger in the hungry ghost realm, and the suffering of servitude in the animal realm, and so on. We take refuge in the authentic Dharma, realized by our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, which has the power to eliminate the fears and sufferings throughout the 3 realms of samsara. Not only do we take refuge in this authentic Dharma, at the same time we take refuge in the noble assembly of Mahayana Bodhisattvas. In other words, having already taken refuge in the Buddha, today we are also discussing taking refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha. Earlier, we introduced taking refuge in the 3 jewels as a whole. Some people might wonder, since we already talked about taking refuge in the 3 jewels before, why is it being discussed again here? Is there a problem of repetition? Some people might think this way, but in fact there is no fault of repetition. Previously, we discussed taking refuge in the 3 jewels from a general perspective. That was an overview of taking refuge in the 3 jewels. Here we are explaining it from a more specific or detailed perspective. When explaining confession from this distinctive perspective, taking refuge in the 3 jewels is still indispensable. If we wish to rely on all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the Dharma and all the Sangha to confess, then all the negative karma accumulated in our own mental continuum can be purified. So previously it was explained in a general way, but here it is from a specific angle. There is no fault of repetition. It should be understood in this way. How should we understand taking refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha here? The generally meaning is not much different from before, but here the Dharma is further divided into the Dharma of transmission and the Dharma of realization. According to the classification of omniscient Longchenpa, the Dharma of transmission should be divided into the causal Dharma and the resultant Dharma. For example, the 12 divisions of the Buddhist scriptures are considered the causal Dharma of transmission. Then the Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and all the Tantras are considered the resultant Dharma of transmission. So within the Dharma of transmission, there are both causal and resultant dharmas. As for the Dharma of realization, it refers to the faith, respect, great compassion, and correct view of emptiness that arise in the mind continuum of ordinary beings, as well as all the realizations attained on the 5 paths and 10 bhumis from ordinary beings onward. All these qualities and realizations of ordinary and noble beings are called the Dharma of realization. Therefore, here we are not only taking refuge in the Buddha, but also in the authentic Dharma realized by Buddha Shakyamuni. When Buddha Shakyamuni attained complete enlightenment at the Vajra seat in India, he said, "I have attained the nectar-like sublime Dharma." This nectar-like sublime Dharma is the object of our refuge. As we discussed earlier, what does it mean to take refuge in the Dharma? We must know it means from now on, in this and all future lives, I will never abandon the Dharma. All my actions will be guided by the Dharma and never stray from the standards of the Dharma. Such aspiration and resolve is what it truly means to take refuge in the Dharma. As for the Sangha, we've explained that it mainly refers to the Mahayana Sangha led by the 8 great Bodhisattvas. Primarily, it refers to the Mahayana Sangha from Bodhisattvas of the first Bhumi up to the 10th Bhumi, who have realized the selflessness of persons and phenomena. Such Bodhisattva Sangha are the objects of our refuge here. Why do we take refuge in them? Because only through them can we find liberation from samsara and attain the eternal happiness of nirvana. That is, we do not need to endure the terrors of cyclic existence and eventually attain the state of perfect enlightenment. Once we achieve the state of perfect enlightenment, there will no longer be any of the faults or defilements of samsara in our mind streams. All the defiled phenomena caused by afflictive emotions will no longer exist. Therefore, taking refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha is extremely important. Many great masters of the past have also emphasized this point. The 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the support for those who seek liberation. It tells us directly that the 3 jewels are the support for anyone who wishes to be liberated. As long as we wish for liberation, the 3 jewels are our support. If we truly wish to attain liberation, taking refuge in the 3 jewels are indispensable. Once we have taken refuge in the 3 jewels, we no longer need to fear samsara. Therefore, we need to generate firm conviction that as long as we have not broken the vows of taking refuge in the 3 jewels, then we will not fall into the lower realms. The other day, we also cited scriptural evidence from the Suryagarbha Sutra. It also said that one who take refuge in the 3 jewels will not fall into the lower realms. I find this point is extremely important for every practitioner. The Buddha, in fact, manifests in various forms. After we take refuge in the Buddhism, the actual 3 jewels, for example, the Buddha, do not always appear directly before us. But in fact, the Buddha images are the Buddha himself. We can find scriptural evidence in the White Lotus Sutra. Manifesting as countless Buddha images, he benefits sentient beings and inspires them to practice virtue. This means that at that time, the Buddha manifested in various sculpted and painted forms, as well as many images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to benefit countless sentient beings and guide them in practicing the Dharma. In any monastery in the Han Chinese regions, there are Buddha images. Whenever we see Buddha images, we should pay respect and make prostrations. This is very important. Some people may have some respect for Buddha images, but sometimes they may not fully understand and may carelessly step on or cross over Buddhist scriptures or images. This is inappropriate and will definitely damage one's refuge vows. In the future, wherever we see members of the Sangha, we should always show respect to them, including to their seats. It is not permissible for lay people to sit above monastics. In many places, there is not enough respect shown to monastics. Some people feel that there is no difference in status between monastics and lay people. Of course, from the perspective of Buddha nature, everyone is equal. Conventionally speaking, some people have already renounced the world and donned monastic robes. So we should show respect to monastics, especially after taking refuge in the 3 jewels. We should respect all monastics, all Buddha images, all Buddhist scriptures, even fragments of sacred texts or images should be treated with respect and keep them in clean places. They should not be placed carelessly or stepped on. Some people are not at all respectful when reading scriptures. They put scriptures in unclean places or mix them with worldly books. They may even put books under their beds, which are all improper actions. Therefore, I hope that all Dharma friends who have taken refuge in the Buddha must act in accordance with the Dharma. This is very important. If we do not act in accordance with the Dharma and instead create many negative actions while relying on the 3 jewels, it is not appropriate. As Buddhists who have taken refuge, we should ideally always recall and contemplate the 3 jewels. If that is not possible, at the very least, we should recall the 3 jewels once a day. This is essential. Omniscient Longchenpa also taught this in Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind. As Buddhists, after taking refuge, we should at the very least recall the qualities of the three jewels once a day. This is the most basic requirement. For those with stronger practice, no matter where we are, walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, we should frequently recall the qualities of the three jewels in all our activities. If we really cannot do this, I think recalling them once a day is not a particularly difficult thing to do. Therefore, we should take this seriously. When we speak of taking refuge in the three jewels, the one who takes refuge, the object of refuge, and the act of taking refuge are all empty of inherent existence in the ultimate sense. The Buddha taught in the Prajnaparamita Sutras and also in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 25,000 lines, the Buddha said to Subhuti, "If someone does not apprehend the Buddha, nor conceive of the Dharma or the Sangha, that is true refuge." This is what the Buddha taught in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. If someone does not grasp at any object, does not apprehend the Buddha, and understands that ultimately there is no Buddha, no Dharma, and no Sangha to be conceptualized, then this is true refuge. This is the most ultimate and definitive perspective. Ultimately, the three jewels are completely free from all conceptual elaborations. They are the union of appearance and emptiness, and its nature has no existence. Even our act of taking refuge in the three jewels is a form of conceptual grasping, but for us as beginners, do we really have such a high realization? Perhaps not. So first of all, we should follow the teachings in the sutra of recalling the three jewels. By taking refuge in the three jewels, we can obtain immeasurable merit. From the conventional perspective, such merit is indeed attainable, so everyone can truly obtain such merit. Therefore, I think everyone here should pay attention to two aspects. First, we should make repeated vows in our heart. No matter what adverse conditions we encounter, you should vow never to abandon the three jewels in this and all future lives. Even in the face of life-threatening danger, we do not abandon the three jewels. I hope that everyone can make this vow from the depths of our heart. This determination should come from deep within, and this is very important. In this way, we will not be aimless in our daily lives. Nowadays, when we see some people who call themselves Buddhists, but can these people really deserve the name? Because they have no respect for the three jewels at all. They do not understand the conducts and precepts of the three jewels. They never recite the refuge prayer or recall the three jewels. So how can such a person be called a Buddhist? Even any worldly organization has its own rituals. Every group in the world has its customs. Some people think, I have already taken refuge, but their refuge is not genuine refuge. It is only a superficial refuge. We do not want to be a Buddhist merely by name. If we truly wish to be a genuine disciple of the three jewels, the most basic requirement is to have respect for the three jewels. We must always have the resolve in our heart never to abandon the three jewels. This is my hope for everyone. If we truly want to be a disciple of the three jewels, we must have this kind of resolve. Of course, if someone does not wish to study Buddhism, we will not force them. After all, religion is a personal choice. There are so many religions in the world. For some people, Buddhism is beneficial. For others, perhaps another religion is more suitable. This is a fact we also acknowledge. I think it is not necessary for everyone to study Buddhism. There is no such requirement, and it is not realistic. But if we truly want to be a disciple of the three jewels, it is best to first study and observe. Many people say, "Oh, taking refuge in the three jewels is very simple. Please don't talk to me about refuge anymore." Some say, "I'd rather you teach me about Dzogchen or Mahamudra or some teachings that bring instant realization. I am not interested in these basic foundational teachings. I already know them." But in my view, such people actually know nothing at all, because their actions reveal this clearly. Perhaps they think learning Buddhism is very simple. Especially when they are beginners, their thinking is very naive and simplistic. They think they will attain realization immediately, or be able to fly in the sky, or become clairvoyants, and so on. They have many strange ideas. They think Buddhism is about having some kind of supernatural powers. They have no idea about the unique qualities and excellence of Buddhism when compared to other world's knowledge. So I think they are too simplistic in their thinking, which will lead their disappointment in the end. Therefore, do not have such simplistic thinking. especially when it comes to refuge. In ancient India, some great panditas studied and practiced refuge for a long time before establishing a firm foundation in their own mind streams. Most of us only have a little worldly knowledge and know nothing about the supramundane. Therefore, we will not have a deep understanding of refuge. Therefore, my first hope is that everyone should be a genuine Buddhist. This is my hope. My second hope is that the merit of taking refuge in the Three Jewels is truly vast. As I mentioned a few days ago, if everyone can help their parents, relatives, friends, or colleagues to take refuge, then everyone should try every possible way to help them. This is something worth putting effort into. Why? Because if you can help them truly take refuge in Buddhism, then your own life will not have been in vain, and your contribution to Buddhism will be significant. I believe your life will have true meaning if someone previously did not believe in Buddhism or even had doubts, prejudices, or wrong views, but later gradually came to take refuge in Buddhism through your persistent encouragement, then I believe your life has truly been meaningful. For all the Dharma friends studying the Bodhicharyavatara this time, in your lifetime, even if not immediately. I don't mean that you must immediately go out tomorrow and find a disciple. It might be a bit difficult for you. Within your lifetime, you can make the aspiration to help at least one person take refuge, even if it's your parents. At your last resort, you could even offer people money to encourage them to take refuge. But for some people, like certain beggars, no matter how much you give, they will not take refuge. Anyway, whether through material offerings or other means, see if you can help someone take refuge. If in your whole life you can help even one person take refuge, that is enough. Some people may think, the people around me are hard to influence, there's really nothing I can do. I've tried many times before, but they just ignore me. Now I feel like I can't say anything to them anymore. Don't give up. As you know from the Buddha's life stories, the Buddha spent a great deal of time planting the seed of liberation in someone's mind stream. You can read the stories of the Buddha to see how much effort he put in. Even as a bodhisattva in previous lives, Buddha put great effort for everyone. As ordinary people, when we try to benefit sentient beings, if we don't succeed the first time, try a second time. If the second time fails, try a third time. Perhaps after dozens or even 100 attempts, the person might say, "You keep encouraging me every day, fine, I'll take refuge." Eventually, they may finally agree. If they do, it will bring them great benefit. Some people may not understand this. If you give someone a car or a house, they will be overjoyed and say, "Look how good my daughter or my parents are to me. They've arranged so much for me." But if you help them take refuge in Buddhism, they may not feel anything at all. But the benefit of taking refuge far surpasses any material wealth. Even if you gave them a throne or made them president of a country, it might not be of real benefit to them. But if you truly help them take refuge in Buddhism, the benefit is immense. For young people who wish to be good to their parents, many think, "My parents have been so good to me, so now I must earn money and buy them a house so that they can enjoy their old age." But in reality, no matter what, their old age will soon come to an end and they will leave this world. No matter how good their life is, it will not last long. So it's best if you can help them enter the Buddhist path before they pass away. If they take refuge before death, you have truly fulfilled your responsibility to your parents and your family. I hope everyone will keep this in mind. Today I want to share two hopes. First, after you take refuge in Buddhism, don't give up halfway. Don't be a Buddhist today and not tomorrow, or treat it as just a formality. Don't be like that. Besides, it's fine if you choose to be a Buddhist. Some people think, why, my work makes it inconvenient for others to know. But I know some people, including some government officials who study the Bodhicharyavatara. These people have high status and quite good conditions, and they are very devout, even though they can't be very public about it, but they are senior practitioners already. There are some officials who don't have high positions, but a lot of worries and anxieties. When high-ranking leaders come to the monastery, they prostrate, recite scriptures, and make aspirations before the Buddha statues. But these officials are very afraid to do so, may be worried about losing their positions. Actually, I feel that having faith in Buddhism will not conflict with any public policies. Why? Because, as a great master once said, Buddhism is entirely for the benefit of all sentient beings. So no matter if you are white, black, or yellow, you can derive benefit from Buddhism because Buddhism seeks to benefit all beings equally. Think about it. If there is a spirit in this world that truly aims to benefit everyone without any conditions, I believe it's unlikely that any country's policies would try to restrict such a spirit. As genuine followers of the Buddha, they would naturally respect rules and regulations. So for those in leadership positions, rather than worrying too much about showing your faith in public, perhaps it's more important to be mindful of not misusing your power, such as by embezzling funds. That's something truly worth paying attention to. Instead, some people don't seem to be afraid of misusing their power, but worry about revealing their faith, thinking the government might not approve of them learning Buddhism and trying to become a better person. But regardless, in any countries, there's really nothing to fear about more people becoming kind and good-hearted. There was once a Dharma teacher who said, "Our country is afraid that I might stop teaching the Dharma, because whether in schools or prisons or any other department, the more I teach, the more good people there are." So our country's leaders are afraid I might stop teaching. What this Dharma teacher shared is absolutely true. In fact, as more and more people in the world study the Dharma, society as a whole should become more peaceful, because as the number of evildoers, such as people who kill, steal, or commit robbery decreases, and as a result, society will naturally become more stable. In many ways, there will be less to worry about. Some people may have all kinds of concerns about practicing Buddhism, but I think there's no need to worry about. All right, now let's move on to the next verse. Now we will talk about taking refuge in the Bodhisattvas who possess great power and aspirations. Petrified with dread, I give myself over to Samantabhadra. I also make an offering to Manjushri of my body. Now, the literal meaning of this verse is, some of us are especially afraid of the suffering and extreme terrors of the three lower realms. To confess, we offer our own bodies to the great Samantabhadra. At the same time, we also offer our bodies to Bodhisattva Manjushri. We offer our bodies to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Here, it introduces some representative Bodhisattvas. It is well known that in the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni, there are the 8 great Bodhisattvas. As the fourth Buddha of this fortunate eon, Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings are generally divided into Mahayana and Hinayana. The Hinayana teachings are protected by the 16 Arhats who ensure the teachings do not decline but flourish in the entire world, including Jambudvipa and Uttarakuru. So we often pray to the 18 or 16 Arhats, and this brings great merit. That is the first reason. Secondly, the Mahayana teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni are entirely protected by the 8 closed suns, also known as the 8 Great Bodhisattvas. The 8 Great Bodhisattvas also protect the teachings, ensuring they do not disappear and continue to flourish. We pray to the 8 Great Bodhisattvas so that the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni will remain in the world forever. Having had such a connection, as practitioners who engage confession practices should not only confess our negative karma before the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but we should especially confess before the 8 great Bodhisattvas. So, whether we release captive lives or transfer the consciousnesses of the deceased, we should often recite the names of the 8 great Tathagatas and the 8 great Bodhisattvas. This brings tremendous merit. Here, it first says, we sentient beings are especially afraid of falling into the 3 lower realms. Why? Because in our lives, we have created a lot of negative karma. Some we remember, some we do not, but we have already created much negative karma. Now, I must confess, but confession is not just saying, I confess, or making a verbal declaration. It must come from deep within our hearts. What are we most attached to? It is our own body, possessions, and merit, and so on. So we first offer the things we care about most, such as our body, possessions, and merit, to Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra is known as the great Bodhisattva who embodies the aspirations of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. If we wish for our own noble aspirations to be fulfilled, we must pray to Samantabhadra. That's why the practices and vows of Samantabhadra are frequently taught in the Avatamsaka Sutra. In the sutra, we learn a lot of Samantabhadra's vast aspirations and qualities. If we pray to Samantabhadra with single-pointed devotion, our aspirations will surely be fulfilled. Of course, according to Mipham Rinpoche's A Garland of Jewels, the 8 great Bodhisattvas, each Bodhisattva has their own unique qualities. For example, Manjushri embodies the wisdom of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Avalokiteshvara embodies the great compassion of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. From the perspective of the ultimate nature, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are not different from one another, but when they appear to sentient beings, each Bodhisattva's power of aspiration are unique. Just as in the world, some people are experts in physics, while others are experts in electronics and technology. In the same way, if we pray to Samantabhadra, our aspirations can be accomplished through his unique blessing. Samantabhadra has this unique blessing power. In the Han Chinese tradition, there was a Chan master named Shide who lived at the same time as Han Shan. He was widely regarded as an emanation of Samantabhadra. His biography contains many extraordinary stories. For example, when he served as the lamp attendant in the monastery, he would sometimes appear to scold bodhisattvas or Buddha images. Sometimes he would give the Sangha's property to Hanshan and others. Sometimes when the monastery's grain was eaten by birds, he would punish the Dharma protectors. There would even be marks appearing on the bodies of the Dharma protectors. Once, when a Dharma teacher was teaching the precepts, Shide was herding a group of oxen at the time, and he was laughing as others were teaching the Dharma. The Dharma teacher was very displeased. He said, "I am teaching the Dharma right now. Why are you behaving like this?" Then Shide replied by reciting a few verses, meaning, "Non-anger is the precept. A pure mind is true ordination." At the time, people often did not understand or recognize great masters while they were alive. When he was alive, people often did not understand or judge him correctly. Afterwards, Shide spoke to the herd of oxen. He said, "Who among you is the reincarnation of so-and-so? Step forward." A white ox stepped forward. Then he said, "Who is the reincarnation of Guangzhou? Step forward." A black ox came forward. As a matter of fact, some monastic stewards had misused Sangha property and were reborn as this herd of oxen. Shide was able to speak directly to oxen. He is the embodiment of a bodhisattva. I have quoted some of his poetry in Footprints on the Journey. The poems of Hanshan and Shide are truly excellent. There are emanations of Samantabhadra in our world, but in Tibetan Buddhism, there are no recognized reincarnations of Samantabhadra. At least none have been heard of so far. In Chinese Buddhism, however, there are still living Buddhas recognized as emanations of Samantabhadra. Masters, or before actual images or photos of Samantabhadra, we should make great aspirations. To make such aspirations is, in fact, to practice the king of aspiration prayer. Perhaps in the future, Khenpo Yeshe Phuntsok will also teach you the king of aspiration prayer. In fact, it is very important for us to frequently make great aspirations. We should also offer our bodies to the great wisdom bodhisattva Manjushri. As you know, in many sutras, it is said that many Buddhas, including Buddha Shakyamuni, have made aspirations before Manjushri, who is the embodiment of the wisdom of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Of course, in texts such as the Vimalakirti Sutra and the Heap of Jewels Sutra, there are various accounts of Manjushri, each with its own details. According to some historical document in Tibetan Buddhism, 44 years after Buddha Shakyamuni's parinirvana, Manjushri was born in the form of a youth at Mount Wutai. There are historical records of Manjushri's birth at Mount Wutai. This is considered very reliable. Now, in all the calendars published in Lhasa, the first entries are the dates of Shakyamuni Buddha's parinirvana and the date of Manjushri's birth. These are historical facts. According to the International Buddhist Union's calculation, they have set the current year as the 2550th year since the Buddha's parinirvana. This is a commonly acknowledged way of calculating, and it is acceptable. Or, according to the Phugpa version of the Kalachakra calendar, this year marks 2,186 years since the parinirvana of Buddha Shakyamuni. So according to this way of calculation, it is 2,886 years. Now we back to the account that Manjushri was born at Mount Wutai 44 years later, after the parinirvana of Buddha Shakyamuni. At that time, it was said that Manjushri was born at Luohu Monastery at Mount Wutai. We went there when we made a pilgrimage to Mount Wutai. This is also recorded in the annals of Mount Wutai and in some Han Chinese historical records. It is said that around 60 BCE, Manjushri was born in a Brahmin family in India. His father's name was Devan, and he was born from the right side of his mother's body. At his birth, 10 auspicious signs appeared. Therefore, he was called Beautiful One with Auspiciousness. Many manifestations of Manjushri are found in both Han and Tibetan regions. For example, in Han Chinese tradition, it is said that emperors of the Qing dynasty, such as Qianlong, Shunji, and Kangxi, were also emanations of Manjushri. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are many great masters, such as Mifam Rinpoche, Omniscient Longchenpa, and Je Tsongkhapa, are also widely recognized as emanations of Manjushri. King Trisong Detsen is also said to be an emanation of Manjushri. There are such accounts. In any case, we ourselves should think this way. Before the great wisdom Manjushri, we should offer our own bodies. Nowadays, if we have the chance to visit the sacred sites of Manjushri and Samantabhadra, such as the 4 sacred Buddhist mountains in China, taking photos or sightseeing is not the most important thing. Especially as Buddhists, please remember they are the sacred sites of these bodhisattvas, and we should pray with single-pointed devotion, praying that at the time of death, these bodhisattvas will appear before us, and that we will not experience the suffering of the lower realms. Make noble aspirations in our heart. This is indeed very important for Buddhists. If we have the opportunity to visit these sacred mountains, we should make aspirations from our hearts. Patrul Rinpoche once said that if we go to sacred mountains just for tourism or live in a quiet place just for comfort, it may look like virtuous activity on the surface, but in reality, it is meaningless. This is also mentioned in Lotus Gardens play. Nowadays, some people say, I want to make a pilgrimage to the sacred mountains. But when they actually get there, they never make any aspirations, which is not really appropriate. We should make aspirations properly. This is what it means to offer our bodies before the great wisdom Manjushri. Now we finish this section. The next section is about offering our bodies before Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. We pray to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. I cry a miserable wail to guardian Avalokiteshvara, whose acts of mercy are unmistaken. I beg, protect me who have done wrong. Here, it is also said that as beings who experience suffering, we should call out with all our strength, using a voice of pain and compassion to repeatedly supplicate. To whom do we pray? To the one whose every action is guided by great compassion, untainted by any ignorance or defilement, whose every act is motivated by great loving kindness and compassion. This is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Vara. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva has always regarded all sentient beings with great compassion, from the very moment of generating bodhicitta all the way to Buddhahood. Avalokiteshvara is the protector of those who are suffering. That's why we often say Avalokiteshvara relieves suffering and rescues those in distress. We should also repeatedly supplicate before Avalokiteshvara. What do we pray for? We pray, I am a person deeply burdened by negative karma. Please rescue me. Please do not let me fall into the 3 lower realms and experience immeasurable suffering. As you all know, some historical texts say that in India, Tibetan regions, and Han region of China, Avalokiteshvara is recognized as having 3 main sacred sites. In India, it is Mount Potalaka, which is also mentioned in the Avatamsaka Sutra. In Tibetan regions, the Potala Palace is considered the sacred abode of Avalokiteshvara. There is such a tradition. In the Han region of China, it is Mount Putuo. Mount Putuo is considered Avalokiteshvara's sacred abode. According to some historical records, when Emperor Qianlong first visited there, he did not have much faith in Buddhism. When he went to Mount Putuo for the first time, he saw all the monastics that were gambling and behaving in ways that were not in accordance with the Dharma. He was very displeased and wanted to punish them. When he wanted to punish them, his mother told him not to harm monastics and not to do such things. The second time he went, he saw even more improper behavior. This is recorded in detail in history, but I won't go into it now due to time limits. He again wanted to punish them, but his mother stopped him. The third time he went, he saw some monks and nuns mingling together, engaging in all sorts of improper activities. At that time, Emperor Qianlong was displeased, so he wanted to gamble with them to make them lose everything. So the emperor gambled with the monastics. and ended up losing all his possessions to the monastics. He lost everything. In the end, he had no choice. He even gave his crown to a monk. He gave his imperial robe to another. In the end, as an emperor, he had lost all his symbols of status. He had nothing left. Afterwards, his guards were very upset. They immediately surrounded the monks, preparing to arrest them. When they tried to arrest the monks were terrified and ran everywhere. In the end, they all ran into the main hall. When everyone went to look inside, they saw some arhats in the hall wearing the emperor's crown, and Avalokiteshvara was wearing the imperial robe. Only then did they fully realize that the monks they had just seen were all emanations of Avalokiteshvara and others. From then on, Emperor Qianlong's faith greatly increased. For the rest of his life, he had great faith in Avalokiteshvara. There is such a story. Emperor Qianlong often encountered such things. Sometimes some lay practitioners may notice that some monastics who don't seem to follow the Dharma properly, and they may judge one or another, but as lay people, it's best not to focus on the faults of monastics. Some things are really hard to say. On the surface, you might see some eating meat or drinking alcohol or engage in various behaviors that seem improper, but we cannot truly measure their inner qualities. As long as you see the robes of the Buddha and recognize them as such, treat them as a true object of refuge. In doing so, you will not be harmed but only benefit. People are different in many ways. Some people in certain places, especially in some southern cities, tend to enjoy talking about the faults of monastics. It seems in their eyes there are no bad people except monastics. They spend all day talking about the faults of monastics, which is not good. As lay people, if you don't even have the courage to ordain yourself, you should at least admire those who have. All right, let's leave it at that. Sometimes I think of some lay practitioners, and I have to say something. To noble Akashagarbha and to Ksitigarbha, to every one of the protectors with great compassion, I cry from my heart in search of refuge. Here too it is said that we should call upon Akasagarbha Bodhisattva from the depths of our hearts and pray to Akasagarbha Bodhisattva. We also pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva as well as Maitreya, Sarvanivarana Viskambin, and so on. We pray to all the 8 great Bodhisattvas in the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni one by one and sincerely wish for their protection. As for Bodhisattva Akashagarbha, the Akashagarbha Sutra describes many of his qualities. In fact, for beginners, especially those who have broken the Bodhisattva vow, it is essential to pray to Akashagarbha. The blessings and power of Akashagarbha can help us be freed from the faults of breaking vows. As for the great vow holder Ksitigarbha, the Sutra of the 10 Wheels of Ksitigarbha mainly describes his qualities. His main characteristic is that he fulfills the wishes of sentient beings. For example, if I wish to become wealthy, praying to Ksitigarbha will quickly make my wish come true. If I wish for promotion, peace, or any kind of wish, whatever wish any sentient being may have, praying to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva can help fulfill it. So, to all the Bodhisattvas, especially Ksitigarbha and Akashagarbha, and all the Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, we should supplicate from the depths of our hearts. It should not just be words or make a gesture. We should pray sincerely from our hearts. After praying, we should also think, since beginningless time and in this very life, I have committed many negative actions. May these great Bodhisattvas protect me and purify my misdeeds. Especially in some Vajrayana teachings on liberation through hearing, we often supplicate these great Bodhisattvas. So, when someone passes away, we should recite the name of Buddha Amitabha by their ear, and also recite the names of the 8 great Bodhisattvas. If we recite the names of the 8 great Bodhisattvas in the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni, all beings who form a connection will attain liberation. Therefore, the 8 great Bodhisattvas are also included among the 42 peaceful deities. I go for refuge to Vajrapani, upon the sight of whom from fear malevolent beings like the henchmen of Yama flee in the 4 directions. Here we also take refuge in Bodhisattva Vajrapani. When the wrathful henchmen of the Lord of Death see Bodhisattva Vajrapani, they scatter and flee in all directions, completely terrified. The combined power of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is embodied in Bodhisattva Vajrapani. According to the view of the exoteric teachings, when Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta appears in a wrathful form, he is Vajrapani. According to the Vajrayana, Vajrapani is the one who gathers all the tantric teachings taught by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Vajrapani is the embodiment of all the wisdom of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So whether in the exoteric or esoteric traditions, when we encounter obstacles, we should pray to Vajrapani. All obstacles will then dissolve into the Dharmadhatu. Therefore, in daily life, praying to Vajrapani can dispel obstacles. When we encounter obstacles in practice or during the bardo after death, when terrifying messengers of Yama gather, if we can recall the name of Vajrapani Bodhisattva, all obstacles will be dispelled. Vajrapani is one of the 3 great protectors, along with Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri. We can often pray to them in our daily lives. Praying to Vajrapani Bodhisattva brings great power. Not only does Vajrapani have such blessings, the name and mantra of Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, carry the same blessings. In the commentary on the aspiration to be reborn in the pure realm of Sukhavati, there is a story about a man who was a hunter. When he was about to kill a musk deer, a bear appeared and pinned him down. He was terrified and immediately prayed to Guru Rinpoche. As soon as he prayed, his fear instantly vanished. So for us, sometimes praying to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is extremely important. Whether in this life or future lives, praying to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is always important. For example, there was once a woman who often prayed to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. She recited over 300 million Om Mani Padme Hum mantras. She also recited 100,000 praises to Tara. Later, she dreamed of a woman appearing before her who gave her a blue robe. She had no idea this was an emanation of Tara. Later, another person appeared and gave her a white robe and a crystal mala. She didn't know this was an emanation of Avalokiteshvara, but through her faith and diligence, she attained realization in this very life. So for us, it is best to choose a Buddha or Bodhisattva in whom we have the deepest faith as our yidam and regularly recite their mantra. For example, some people take Avalokiteshvara as their yidam and devote their whole life mainly practicing Avalokiteshvara's teachings. Some people have especially strong faith in Manjushri. In 1987, our precious teacher, His Holiness, asked everyone at the entire institute to mainly practice Manjushri as their yidam. He required everyone to recite 100 million Manjushri mantras. After His Holiness brought many disciples to Mount Wutai, he encouraged everyone to make this aspiration. It is best for everyone to have a yidam for their whole life. If your teacher designates your yidam, that is also fine, or you can choose a particular Buddha or Bodhisattva you have the most faith in. From then on, you should single-pointedly recite your yidam's mantra. In this way, at the time of death, your yidam will appear to you. In the bardo, your yidam will also appear. Even if you are reborn in the 3 lower realms and experience suffering, your yidam will appear in various forms to save you. As human beings, just as we need to choose a good teacher for our studies. In samsara, we need to choose a yidam to rely on when we are without support. If we have a fixed yidam and pray to them regularly, whenever we encounter obstacles or suffering, we will naturally pray to them. Whenever we face difficulties or suffering, we will pray to our yidam. So I think choosing a yidam is not meaningless. It is actually very beneficial. In summary, Bodhisattva Vajrapani, whether in Sutrayana or Vajrayana Buddhist traditions, is always depicted in a powerful, wrathful form. We should always pray to him. When we encounter obstacles, including the Lord of Death and his minions, just as we discussed yesterday, many forms may appear in the bardo. There are all kinds of spirits, rakshasas, and so on in the hell realms manifesting in various forms. When we recall the name of Vajrapani, all those hell guards will be terrified and flee. They will run away. Originally, those hell guards were extremely arrogant, but as soon as Vajrapani appears, they all flee. Next, we will discuss how to take refuge. I have in the past transgressed your word, but now that I've seen the great peril, I go to you for refuge and plead, swiftly eliminate this fear. So how do we take refuge? We should think like this. We deeply realize that in the past, we have already violated the teachings of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and our teachers. Only now in this very life do we realize this. After realizing it, we feel especially afraid. So from now on, we wholeheartedly wholeheartedly take refuge in the three jewels and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, and we vow never again to create such negative karma. May all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas eliminate the fears and sufferings in our own mind streams. We should confess in front of them in this way. On the one hand, we confess. On the other, we make vows. Of course, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have given us many teachings, but how have we violated them? The Buddha did not personally appear before us and say, you must not do this. But the Buddha and our teachers have already taught us the Dharma. For example, abandon all evil, practice all virtue, and purify your mind, and so on. Have we truly and properly put these into practice? Certainly not. Moreover, in front of our teachers and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we have received pratimoksha vows, bodhisattva vows, and samaya vows. But in the actual practice, we have not upheld them well. So now, when we look at ourselves, we feel extremely ashamed. The Buddha told us to practice virtue, but we have not done so, nor have we properly engaged in hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Nor have we properly kept the refuge vows or generated bodhicitta. We have not done these things. Moreover, we have committed many negative actions that we should not have done. As a result, we feel especially guilty and ashamed. Even though we have made aspirations before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we have not truly practiced as we should. If we continue like this, we will definitely fall into the 3 lower realms, which is truly frightening. Therefore, we should take refuge in the 3 jewels from the depths of our hearts. From now on, we must never commit such negative actions again. This requires a firm resolve. For example, in Tibetan Buddhism, there was the translator Rinchen Zangpo. In his later years, he made a firm resolve and went into retreat. He wrote on the threshold of his retreat, "If, even for an instant, I give rise to worldly thoughts of attachment, may all the Dharma protectors punish me and smash my head." He made such a vow before the Dharma protectors and set his resolve. He then spent 10 years in retreat and finally attained complete realization. In Chinese Buddhism, for example, Emperor Wu of Liang, in order to govern the country, committed all kinds of negative actions. Later, he awakened and reflected on his life. In the end, he also made vows before the 3 jewels. He said, "From now on, I will never do anything unlawful again. I will observe the practice of not eating after noon every day. In addition, I will not eat the flesh of any sentient being. If I fail to do so, may all the Dharma protectors punish me and take me from this world early." He made such a vow and later practiced accordingly. Some people nowadays may say, "Because of my work, I can't be vegetarian," or "Because of my work, I am too busy." When people say this, sometimes it sounds like excuses. Even someone like Emperor Wu of Liang, the leader of an entire country, still had the opportunity to avoid negative actions and also had the chance to govern the country and practice the Dharma. So some of us may be just making excuses. This kind of behavior may not be reasonable. Of course, here we should also make vows. People like me are just parroting words from Buddhist teachings without truly putting them into practice. I feel embarrassed to encourage you to practice well. Maybe I'm not in the position to say this, but sometimes I have no choice but to say it. In short, as practitioners, if you have realized Dzogchen or a high tantric state, abiding in that realization is the best way to purify negative karma. If you do not have that, then you must rely on bodhicitta and refuge and use these methods to confess the negative karma in your mind stream. This is extremely important. If in your heart you truly have refuge in the 3 jewels and genuine, uncontrived bodhicitta, then in your future lives, you will never fall into the lower realms. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the pith instructions of our teachers. I think this is very important. Therefore, I hope everyone will practice confession. Of course, if you have the opportunity to confess now, see if you can. Aside from your daily life, set aside some time or a period each year for intensive practice. If you find it difficult to practice every day, can you at least take a month each year? If not, then 21 days. If that's not possible, then 7 days. I think out of 365 days in a year, you should be able to set aside 7 days. If you can set aside 7 days, you can tell your family or colleagues that you are going on a business trip or vacation, and then find a place to practice. Then in another place, prepare a room for yourself and practice confession properly in front of a statue of Vajrasattva. This is not just empty words. It will actually be helpful for your practice. All right, let's stop here for today.
Bandara